that was terrific. What a great novel night. Usually at the end of novel night, we have a Q&A from the audience, a little discussion with the writers. So if anybody has any questions for our three writers tonight, yeah, sure. If you guys want to stand up here, and ask a question, questions. Anybody have any questions? Beyond the Lego blocks. That's a great analogy.
The pad thai connection's incredible. I just wanted to comment on that.
So, yeah, please. We know your next novel is what's the
Never
name?
Ask Me.
Never Ask Me.
Don't ask me.
No.
And are you working on something now?
I am
And
revising a novel right now.
Should we ask you about it?
Yeah, sure. It's called Bad Habits, at least right now it is.
Okay, is it another thriller?
It is another suspense novel.
Okay.
And this one is set in grad school.
Uh-oh.
That's all I will say about it.
Uh-oh. And how about you?
Yeah, I'm in the throes of writing, trying to turn the corner on it now. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. And you're all three here in Austin, right?
And these were all three Austin novels. I didn't realize that going into it.
Yeah.
These were all three set in Austin.
Wow, that's cool. Anybody?
I have a question in terms of your setting in Austin. Do you find anything, because you live here, do you ever find that you're too close to it, or does it help you, or is it a hindrance?
Well, I've written novels that are set like in London and New York and don't have any setting in Austin. And then I've written novels entirely set in Austin. I sort of enjoy writing. I have my own view on Austin because I moved here when I was 6 months old, and there was no MOPAC, and Austin was decidedly smaller than what it is now. So I've, seen all the changes for good and for bad, and I think most of the changes have actually been for good. But I enjoyed not having to get on a plane, because I talked about going and doing the research before. Before that I was writing a series of novels about an ex-CIA officer who owns bars all around the world. So I would have to go and research the bars, in Amsterdam. Someone must do it. But that is work to have to go and do, and actually go and do and track down locations and do the research. And I enjoyed it, but it's awfully nice to not have to travel. I don't feel too close to it because people are always trying to guess like street names in Lake Haven. And I've had people say, well, is it Lakeway? Could it be Lakeway? Or is it Westlake? And I'm like, y'all people are dying in this town. Why are y'all arguing over which do you want to be in this town? It's dangerous, So,
I felt very Barton Creek Mall.
This is very Barton Creek Mall.
I felt very Barton.
It is.
Oh my God!
It was a tough research assignment at Barton Creek Mall. But you also want to make the place seem vivid for people who've never been to Austin.
Right.
And I encounter people on book tours who are like, oh, you live in Austin, I really want to go there now. They've heard about it, they want to come see it. So I don't know that I'm too close or too far from it.
I actually felt a little bit too close. My first book was set in Houston, where I grew up, and weirdly I felt like I had enough distance on that, but was also kind of knew it really deeply. And then this one I thought, why not put it in Austin? It is easier. I need a place I needed a place where performers, a lot of performers are, and all of my husbands in my circle is kind of 90% comedy and performance, so I know a lot about that world, and a place where people bounce back to after they go to New York and then LA, and they keep coming back.
Well, that's true. It is sort of a trampoline city for people.
Absolutely.
They come back, recuperate, and then they go back.
And I've certainly, not for performance reasons, but I too came here for college and then went somewhere else and back, and then somewhere else again for grad school and back. So I felt like that was a good place to set it. But I did find that some parts of Austin were like too close to my heart, and I didn't want to give them up. Like for me, there was almost a scene in Barton Springs, but I was like, I just can't, you know. And I ended up making part of the book I dealt with that by making the book kind of about the tension between new and old Austin. So she is gone, and then when she comes back, Austin has gotten a lot bigger while she's been gone, and that's part of the tension in the book. So I kind of was able to only deal with the parts of Austin that didn't feel like a raw, exposed nerve of like 19-year-old Amy. That's how I dealt with it.
So the thread of the question was what, too close?
Are you too close, or do you feel like that it's inhibiting in any kind of way?
No, with me, I was really trying to write a love letter, even though it's a horror novel. I wanted to really hit Austin. This is my Halloween book. It'll always be my Halloween book. I hope that I'm able to read this, if not every year. And I'm asked to come, hey, drag old man Falkin out. Nobody's late bloomer again. It takes place in my neighborhood. In literally, you know, when we read a novel, the houses we see in our memory banks are our childhood houses, or you know, our brain grabs those places. Well, with literally my house, literally the house across the street, literally Mopac Bridge.
Oh wow. Yeah.
You know, it's just all there, and so I found it a great benefit to have it be very, very Austin-centric, and just you know, when I drive around now, even though we get tired of our book because we live with them a lot and kind of want to put them away, even when I'm driving around town, I'll smile and go, oh, that's where so-and-so did this.
That's where someone had a horrible death.
Right. And I've had a few people who have read this like, now when I go on Mopac Bridge, I just don't see it the same. Like, I'm sorry.
Right. No, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions?
Some question. When you are doing the Lego block methodology, does that lead to a more agile way of writing, where you're kind of going chapter by chapter, or do you outline the whole thing based on the two kind of ideas you had that you're trying to join together?
Thank you for calling it a methodology. That makes it sound so much more impressive than it is. Sometimes they just feel it. I don't say I'm gonna write a Lego block book. It sort of just happens because I have lots of ideas. I don't necessarily want to spend a year with some of those ideas. Sometimes they have to grow and develop a little bit more. And sometimes in the case of the Lego block books, it's two different ideas that sort of come together fortuitously or out of desperation, because I don't know what happened. So regardless if I get the idea whole or it's sort of two ideas that sort of wander in dangerous proximity to each other, I do an outline for every book, just because my editor wants to see it at this point. You would think after 20 novels, they're like, we think he can finish one, but you know, that's just the way publishing is now, that they want to see, you know, a fairly detailed synopsis. I write one pretty detailed outline for my editor, and then we write like a one-page précis of that for the salespeople and the executives, so they can have an idea of what the book would be about. But I like to plan it out a little bit. I still find, however, almost in every book there will be some character who comes on stage who I've written in the outline as being a somewhat minor character, and he or she asserts themselves forcefully once they have come on stage and knocking other people off the stage possibly, and then I have to kind of revamp but I go with that flow. I don't say, oh, I'm sorry, you weren't in the outline, so, you know, if you'll wait over there, I just keep going with it. You don't want to say anything? Do y'all outline?
I don't have any Lego block stories. I'll say, I mean, just talk about how we write. I'm a total, what they call a pantser, right from the seat of my pants. And then I know what I want to write, the concept is there, the general emotional center is there that I'm trying to get to. And as I write, an outline-ish develops. Literally at the bottom, maybe you guys do this too, the bottom of your manuscript, like, and then this happens, and then this happens, and don't forget this. And you start to put together an outline. It's not formal. But I'm very much a pantser, and things just occur when a character speaks up. You're like, oh, okay, clearly I've got to give that character some room to move. So I'm very much on the fly. Yeah.
I'm right in the middle. Fittingly, yep. I have tried and tried to outline. I too am asked to do that, and and I generally end up, just revising the outline again and again and again, and kind of building it as I go. But yeah, I would say I'm kind of happy now.
Do you come at it trying to get in that niche of feminist perspective, or does that just happen?
That's just where I live, so that's kind of where my interests are. The next book is, all of my books kind of end up touching on some issue like that, but I certainly, the next one is not, I don't think, quite as out there. This one was written in the wake of the election, the presidential election, and I was feeling pretty bad, and a lot of women I know were feeling very, very upset. So all the kind of feelings that fed into what became known as the Me Too moment were feeding straight into that book as well. And it was not a lot of fun to write, to be honest. It was very, I think it's fun to read, but it was stressful to write because I was channeling a lot of my feelings into it. But I think, again, that's just where I kind of come down there eventually, almost wherever I start. Because I'm just interested in women's experience, and I think crime writing, we've had kind of a big renaissance of women writing domestic suspense and thrillers. Partly because I think there's a lot more interest in women's stories maybe than there was 15 or 20 years ago, and it's a fun thing to be a part of. But someday I'll write a book has a male protagonist. Give me 3 more books.
Get it out.
Did you start writing that before the Weinstein story came out in the New Yorker?
It
I
was.
bet you were just like,
Yeah, I was actually a little bit upset because I was like, by the time this comes out, this won't even be relevant anymore, which is hilarious and not true. If only that were true, but no. Yeah.
And did you worry you would be viewed as an opportunist?
Yes, I did. And I just learned to answer that question. It's always the first question every interviewer asked me. So I became comfortable with it and began to, see the question as my friend and an opportunity to talk about what I care about.
More questions?
yeah.
I heard another author talk not that long ago, and they talked about the process they came to, their process of writing their current book. And I was fascinated by the stories that they had about how other authors, friends of theirs, had helped them or worked through issues with them. So how do you all, what's your relationship with other authors, and how do you interact when you're writing your books?
Both of you. I keep things so close to the chest. I'm not a sharer, but I'm very fascinated in other writers' stories. Whether it's a live event like this, I love eating that up. Their process, I think, it's just so interesting. And there's lots of good documentaries and things on the interwebs about it. But just watching the way other writers approach their craft and the way they talk about it, like in situations like this, that's just fascinating to me. I've probably learned more about writing from these sorts of discussions than I have in any silly how to write a novel book. Just listen to people talk about their craft and just everyday stuff. That's the most, I think, some of the most powerful. You can get an MFA if you like, that's great. But I listening to other writers talk about their craft is, I think, so enlightening.
I'm in a writing group. So we are, all writers in the group. We're all in different genres. No one else is writing thrillers. We've been meeting for more than 5 years now. I think 6 or 7. So long before my first book came out, we were all wanting to write novels, and we were looking for a place to bring those and give each other feedback and support. So that's I am very wed to the idea of sharing the work. I do think you have to keep it really close, I don't even let my husband read it until, a year into the process, because I want it to be really, really good by the time he reads it. I think you kind of get used to finding the people who are, who can really bring, I kind of a sense of trust and commitment to your work, and those are kind of the top level of useful people to me, and it always has to be reciprocal for me, and I need to be reading their work too, so we're giving each other back and forth. And then there's others, several other tiers of like, people you meet in your community, and other writers. Like, you can always learn something from other writers, and from books that you read if you even have never met each other. I think other writers are a big part of my process. Absolutely.
I sort of came of age as a writer. This makes me sound so old. In the 90s, when there was kind of a resurgence in mystery fiction, and I was kind of published for the first time around the same time as Harlan Coben and Laura Lippman, and the crime writing community is actually very friendly and full of nice people, because I guess we get all our violence out on the page. But we've always been very supportive of each other. Sometimes I'm not necessarily sharing problems with them, like I don't know what to do in chapter 30, but like the novel before this one was Blame, and it centered on a 20-year-old woman. I am a man in my mid-50s, and I was not confident about writing a 20-year-old woman. And Laura Lippman told me, I've been reading you for 20 years, you can do this. And if you do it badly, don't tell anyone that you know me, don't embarrass me, Jeff. And I was like, okay, so I'll try. And then actually that was like one of the things when the book was very positively reviewed. I was lucky. People were like, yeah, he's a 50-year-old guy, how did he do this? And I'm like, well, I wrote her as a human being. Because we have more in common than we have for what separates us. We all know what it's like to feel ashamed or lost or really at a low ebb, and want to have that spark of hope that you'll get back. So sometimes it's just been encouragement. Other writers giving encouragement, and but I email with Harlan quite a lot. Usually it's dad jokes or things that our children have said. All our kids are in college together. But there have been times I've said, I'll say brain trust in the email to him and a couple of other writer friends that I'm close to, and it's like, what should I do next? Or, I had this idea for a book, is this dumb? Because they'll tell me, but it's almost always encouragement. It's not so much technical advice, because I'm not usually sharing the manuscripts with them, like how you would in a writer's group, where you may actually get, someone may say, oh, your point of view isn't working, or you need to build up that character.
I would say, especially at this point where we've been meeting for so long, and there's only 5 or 6 of us, like, it is probably 80 to 90% just cheerleading and support and like therapy.
Right.
But then it is wonderful, like, especially as someone just going into crime writing, and I only have 2 under my belt and 1 I'm working on. I go to them for plot advice. I'm like, I'm in the 3rd act. I painted myself into a corner. She has to get from here to there, and I don't know how. And I've got a lawyer in my group, and I've got an investigative journalist in my group, and I've got like kind of one of everything, an immigration specialist. So I come to them, and it's amazing how like a little brainstorming session, they can come up with better stuff. And so, every once in a while, I think like maybe once or twice for each book, I've brought them a very specific problem, and we've had like a brainstorming session, and it's so fun. I've never collaborated with anyone on, writing or anything like that. I always think I don't play well with others, but there's something tremendous about being able to just like, be like, I don't know how to fix this, any ideas? And you have 4 or 5 more brains like working.
Well,
it's
and
great.
sometimes it's the other writers tell you stuff
yes,
but you just don't remember it because you're panicking. And I had a friend, not this like me helping someone, but a friend was saying, I am stuck in this book, and I said, every time I've been stuck, it's because I don't know a character well enough about what he or she wants. Don't quit trying to untangle the massive incidents that are happening. Go back and untangle the heart of this person. And then they emailed me the next day, go, I wrote 10 pages of notes about this, and now I know where I'm going. And I'm like, you're welcome, but it's not like I'm some genius down from the mountains, I swear to it. And this can't be fixed, clearly. No one else has ever encountered this problem. They're like, physician, heal thyself, you know.
I think it's hilarious you brought up Harlan Coben, because that was the same author that was also brought up the other night, and...
No, he is a really, really nice guy. And we've known each other for a really long time. But yeah, he's a really, really nice guy.
Yeah, we've got time for maybe one more.
Yes. Do the characters ever invade your dreams? I've had that trouble where as I go to sleep, they're in there.
I wouldn't say specifically, but there's been a few times when I wake up, I'm like, wow, that was kind of in that world, or there's some sort of mood or atmospherically it was similar, but not directly like the character sitting with me or I'm in the scene of a book, but definitely a residue of a dream. Yeah, a little bit, not much.
The one I'm working on now, the way the idea came to me, the way it all started was with a dream, which I think is probably a terrible thing. I would never recommend it, but I had this sort of vision of this one scene, and I just couldn't shake it, and when I kind of, I don't know, it stayed with me, and I ended up kind of building this whole plot around this scene. I don't think you'll be able to tell when it's out, but I don't know if that's the same, but they came into the dream and made the whole book happen.
No, I understand.
I do keep a notebook by my bedside in case there are sometimes right when I'm about to fall asleep, sometimes a solution to an issue will suggest itself to me.
Yeah.
Or I'll have a thought that I think is super deep, and I'll write it down, and then the morning over coffee, it was like the least deep thing I could have thought. It's like embarrassingly shallow. So I put the piece of paper down the disposal. But I don't recall that I've really dreamed about the situations. I may have, I don't always remember my dreams, but there's definitely something in that literal zone between wakefulness and sleep when I think things bubble up. And if I don't write it down, I will really panic. So I'll tell myself, oh, I'll remember that in the morning. And one time it was like the solution to a book. I thought, oh, I'm so glad I thought of this. I'll remember it in the morning. And I did not remember it in the morning. And I remembered it like 3 days later. 3 agonizingly desperate days when I go, why did I spend 99 cents on that notebook in the pen next to the bedside and not use it?
But did it turn out to solve the book? Did it turn out to
It
solve
actually
it?
did. It
That's
actually did.
amazing.
It did. It was a help. But I arrived back at it by going back and revisiting and sitting with the source material and thinking all that. But most of the time, it's me writing down something I think is profound, and it's just not.
I got whole lines of like dialogue or something. Yeah, it's like usually it's less the characters and it's more some line of narration.
Or a little twist of a word.
So beautiful.
A little phrase that you're like,
you
this
write
is
it down.
great.
You're like ice scraps. That's not a phrase or whatever. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you all. And please eat some more snacks, buy books. Remember, all fiction tonight is 20% off.